This meeting is being recorded.
Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for signing in tonight. We'll just get started here. I'm Deanna Langman with the Montana Procurement Technical Assistance Center, or PTAC, and we'll get to our agenda here shortly and introduce the staff from the Forest Service. But before we do that, I do want to just say a few words about PTAC and who we are and what we do and how we can help your company. And many of you have worked with us already, so you have an idea, but for those that may not have met with us before, PTAC is a federal program funded in part by Department of Defense. It's a national program. All the states have PTACs, and we are specialists. We specialize in helping companies with government contracting. And that means everything from registrations and troubleshooting these electronic systems to finding opportunities, doing market research, helping you work through a solicitation, respond to an opportunity, you name it. That's all we do all day long is work on government contracting. And we have, in Montana, we have 6 locations. And like I said, all the states have PTACs, and we have Idaho PTAC with us tonight. Lee, if you want to do a wave and say hello. I don't know who else is on from Idaho, but maybe.
I'm on from Idaho, and Beth Freeman, who is our counselor out of Coeur d'Alene, is on. Wonderful. And basically we do the same functions, but our client base is any business that's located within the bounds of the state of Idaho. Right.
And we're Montana PTAC. And we've got Patty Cox here tonight. She's in our Missoula location. And I saw Carly's name somewhere. She's in our Lewistown location. We have Roz on somewhere, and she's with me here in Billings. I don't know. Do you see anybody else from Montana PTAC? Patty?
Shannon is on. I saw her on, and I think maybe Josie might be on.
Great. Josie's in Great Falls. Shannon's up in our Lewistown, rather.
I think Lisa's on too.
Lisa's on from Kalispell. Wonderful.
Yep.
Yep. So tonight we're talking about fire contracting, of course, but we want you to understand that there's a lot of other opportunities out there besides this, depending on what your company does. There could be opportunities for your company with other agencies besides the Forest Service. So keep that in mind and visit our website, montanaptac.org. And that's where we have a more comprehensive list of services that we provide. And you know, you don't have to pay for any of these services. Your tax dollars are already paying for us to help you. And so many of our clients we've worked with year over year and have different phases as they move through the contracting cycle, depending on what they're doing. And so don't be shy. Wherever you're at in Montana or any state for that matter, you can find a PTAC that can help you. Anything else you want to add, Patty or Roz, Lee?
Just like to welcome everybody for coming and know we're here to answer your questions and to thank the Forest Service for helping collaborate on this important meeting. And just, I think it's going to be a very great learning experience for everyone.
Yep. Wonderful.
I do want to point out that the pre-Viper meetings are already scheduled on the System for Reward Management. For regions 1, 2, 4, 8, and 9, they will be happening on the 22nd of February, the 24th of February, and the 28th of February. Those are the 3 times. And you can register by going to sam.gov, search Viper. You can find the preseason meeting for the regions that you're interested in, and you register right online. And then they will send you a Zoom link to attend whichever time slot you have registered for about 2 days prior.
Wonderful. Well, with that, I'll get to our guest tonight and speaker, Ryan Patrick. He is a contractor liaison with the Forest Service. Ryan, thank you for joining in tonight and presenting the information. And I believe you have others on your staff that you would like to introduce as well.
Yeah, thank you guys for putting this on and organizing and promoting and getting us all here together. Big thank you to PTACs, no matter what state you're in. You guys are awesome and do a lot of work and help out the contracting community. So thanks for all that that help and support. Yeah, tonight, I believe I have Diane Ziegler on. She's an assistant contract specialist who helps me out with the contract operations in Region 1. And then Chris Loris is on. He's our Region 1 equipment specialist and also a COR on these IBPA agreements. We also have Randy Sadler, who's a contracting officer for the Procurement and Property Services Organization, or the Equipment Service Branch, which falls under them. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the presentation. And then I believe Ron George, Washington office contract operation, is on as well. It definitely, I'll be doing the main presentation, but definitely be relying on those folks to help me out with questions as we get into those, which will be really the meat of tonight's discussion. I think there's always a lot to be learned and great questions that are asked. So we'll definitely leave enough time for that. With that, I'll try sharing my screen here and jump into the presentation.
Let me stop sharing. And Ryan, would you rather everyone waited to the end to ask questions, or how would you prefer to handle that?
Yeah, I think it would be best if we waited till the end and then we could jump into them from there. So we'll just get through the presentation and then leave plenty of time for questions for everybody.
Okay, wonderful. So jot down your questions and hold till the end.
All right.
You're on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Is everybody able to see the screen okay?
Looks good to me, Ryan.
Yeah, it looks
Okay.
good.
Awesome. All right. I'll jump into it. So right off the bat, we'll just go through the 2022 Northern Rockies solicitation plan. And then hopefully this will pop open so we can look at a larger slide here. All right. So we have this year, 2022, the water handling solicitations. So engines are being solicited for this year in the Northern Rockies. We also have the heavy equipment with water. So we'll have the pumper cats, skidgen, soft tracks, and then also the support water tenders for the Northern Rockies. One thing to note this year are weed washing units. Formerly a National Park Service solicitation. We are moving that into Viper this year and soliciting for that this year in the Northern Rockies. These solicitations are on a 3-year cycle. So it came up in the solicitation cycle in Viper this year. And it just made sense to move it in there. A lot of our the Department of Interior agencies have been having issues with their solicitations being able to carry those out. They've been recommended by their Office of Governmental Counsel that they're outside of the scope of their authority with those. So it just makes more sense to move that in now before the actual National Park Service agreement expires. But that said, once the Viper solicitation is awarded to vendors, the National Park Service will be canceling those agreements so we don't have multiple agreements for the weed wash. And then, yeah, just I guess kind of denote to the DNRC, in the past they were doing some of the solicitations as well, and they hadn't got back to them if they are going to do their crew type 2 and type 2 IA, but regardless, those are state-only agreements, and so no other interagency partners could utilize those on their jurisdiction. So those would be state of Montana only. but just something to be aware of. So with that, I'll get back to the slides and hop into the next section here. So closing dates, we've got a March 10th close date for the water handling, engines and support tenders. The heavy equipment with water and the weed wash have a close date of March 10th. So that's definitely a date to be looking out for. Talking with some folks, it sounds like that the Viper system does take a bit to get the information into it as you are uploading your documents and pictures. It does take quite a bit of time to get everything prepared. So don't wait until the last minute to try to do everything. Just a word of caution there. And then I just wanted to take a little bit of time and just kind of show what we have currently in the Northern Rockies for resources. And this was last year, and we can take a look at the engines. There was 75 companies awarded last year for engines. Water tenders, we had 106 companies awarded. And then heavy equipment with water, we had 80 companies awarded. And then under the National Park Service solicitation, there was 6 companies awarded under that. So to kind of give you an idea of how many folks are out there doing this work and supplying their resources for the fire suppression effort. And then I wanted to jump in just to kind of give you an idea of kind of the layout of kind of where these resources, where they're housed within dispatch centers. The majority of the engines are at Missoula Dispatch. There's 40 out of 174 total engines, 43 of them are out of Missoula Dispatch. The next closest dispatch center has 35 in the Great Falls Dispatch Center. So it's there's definitely there in Billings. There's 2. So there's definitely some dispatch centers out there that don't have as many resources. And I guess one thing to note with that, the way we do, we prioritize out of GAC resource orders. So any resource orders that are going outside of the Northern Rockies, everybody gets thrown in to one list, and it's best value for who gets those resource orders to go out of the Northern Rockies. So if you're sitting in in say Lewistown, or whether you're sitting in Billings and there's a resource order out of the geographic area, it's not going to depend on the closest resource, but the resource that provides best value. So it does a couple of things. It drives competition for the Northern Rockies for all the resources. And then also, if you're going all the way to California, the closest resource concept doesn't really make sense to get a resource that far anyways. You might as well send the best value resource for those assignments. Water tenders, again, Missoula Dispatch has 45 water tenders out of 151. Looks like the next closest for water tenders is the Coeur d'Alene Dispatch, and then followed in there by Grangeville Dispatch with 17. Miles City has 3. So there's definitely some more popular dispatch centers for sure. And another thing to note this year with dispatch centers, and there has been notifications sent out to any resources that were housed out of the Bozeman Dispatch Center. The Bozeman Dispatch Center is no longer going to be an option for selection for the solicitations that are coming up, and any resources that are currently dispatched out of Bozeman will need to pick a new dispatch center during the rollover modifications that begin March 1st and will end March 31st. So Bozeman Dispatch Center is being consolidated. There will no longer be any resources housed at a Bozeman Dispatch Center, and it's not going to be a dispatch center that can be selected for these solicitations this year. Heavy equipment with water. Kind of the recurring theme here, Missoula Dispatch Center has 44 out of the 116 heavy equipment with water resources. The next closest looks like 18 with Kootenai Dispatch Center, followed closely by 16 at the Kalispell Dispatch Center. And then they're kind of spread out pretty thinly throughout the other dispatch centers. I wanted to get into kind of the hierarchy, I guess you could call it, with these solicitations and the work that we're doing. So fire suppression, interagency efforts, and in the Northern Rockies, which includes Montana, and then North Idaho, North Dakota, and a small section in South Dakota, is made up of these following agencies. And within that, the Forest Service is one of those agencies, and in the Northern Rockies has, and over time and recently has been taking on the contracting load for the fire suppression resources. So we do work closely with the Northern Rockies Coordinating Group, and they give guidance and work on putting out guidance from an interagency standpoint for all the fire suppression resources. And so I wanted to also touch on our acquisition for the Forest Service, who have the contracting officers that put out these solicitations. They reorganized recently. Last year they were together. Year before that, they started to consolidate from regional contracting officers and organizations to a Washington office level procurement organization. So that overarching procurement organization is called the Procurement and Property Services Organization. They're Forest Service acquisition folks, and then they're further broke down into acquisition organizations that focus on select types of contracts and customers. So like the Field Procurement Operations Group, they focus on purchasing items for the different forests, and it's an internal group focused on getting the things that forest and other districts and things for their needs. And then we have the Incident Procurement Operation, which focuses on the fire suppression solicitations. And specifically for the ones we're talking about this evening, it's the Equipment Service Branch. So you'll hear that name quite a bit. Another name you might hear too within fire contracting is the Incident Management Support Group, referred to as AIMS. They're the ones that are dealing with EERAs if there's not a procurement officer on incident to handle those. So they're another group you might hear of, but the main group that you'll be dealing with and working with, and the contracting officers that are overseeing your solicitation, is the Equipment Service Branch. So it's changed quite a bit. I think some of you were used to having, the couple contracting officers in your region who dealt with all of the solicitations. That's changed to kind of more of a focused approach on these solicitations. So for instance, the water handling solicitation is handled by contracting officer Rashana Workman. And so she's not only working on the Region 1, working with the Region 1 vendors, but she also has in her portfolio Region 2, Region 4, Regions 8 and 9 for water handling equipment. So that's this is a map of kind of how this equipment service branch, they're zoned into 2 zones, an east zone and a west zone. We are in the east zone as Region 1, along with Region 4 to 8 and 9. The east zone also handles national solicitations and the NERV, which is our rental vehicles that they solicit for at a national level. And then West Zone includes Regions 3, 5, 6, and 10. And then I just wanted to kind of show the breakdown of the different contracting officers within the East Zone and their organization. I'm sure some of these names are familiar, some of them might not be, but we've got Jeff Gardner, who's been in Region 1 and is still has an office location here in Region 1. Dana Bangart, who's been in Region 1 and working in fire for quite some time as procurement officer, is now a contract specialist for the East Zone. And then Rashana Workman, as I mentioned, was the contracting officer for the water handling. And Randy Sabler, who's on tonight, and contracting officer, he has the weed wash. And I think I've actually got it broke down on kind of where these different COs are, kind of where they land as far as the different things that they're soliciting for. Randy just got the weed wash, Rashana, water handling, refrigerator trailers, which is national. We don't have any we're not soliciting for those in the Northern Rockies, or we don't have refrigerator trailers, but other regions do. Heavy equipment with water, Jeff Gardner, and then clerical support trailers, Dana Bangart, and that's another national solicitation. The dispatch center that will house clerical support trailers for Region 1 is going to be the Billings Dispatch Center, will be the only one available for the clerical support trailers. And then, as Lee had mentioned, there are 3 what they're calling virtual fire vendor outreach sessions put on by the equipment service branch. Those are the 22nd, 24th, and 28th. There's a registration link. If you search for this virtual fire vendor outreach session, and I can post the link in the chat after the presentation to give you a direct link to those to register for. And then jumping into the IROC and dispatch overview, I did want to just kind of bring your attention to a few things in this category. So IROC, this is the Contracting for Fire website. I can also post this link in the chat once I'm done presenting. But there is a really good video put on for doing the self-status in IROC. If you go to this IROC's update, that video will pop up and it shows you how to gain access to that system, the different accesses you need to get, how you go about statusing that. That is the preferred method to status your equipment. I know last year talking with folks, that was an issue where they thought they were statused differently as far as from their availability to what they were available as, whether it was national within the GAC or local. So there was definitely some miscommunication on what their status was. So that if you can take it on yourself self-status yourself, that you know what you have in the system and what its status as, and there's no question of what that is. So that's definitely something worth taking a look at and getting the accesses to get up to speed with getting your equipment statused in that system. This is a link to the video. It's like a 7-minute video, so it's not horribly long, and it does a good job outlining the steps to get up and running with the IROC self-status. So that's also another one I can post in the chat, or if you feel free to reach out and we can help you navigate the Contracting for Fire website if you have other questions on where to find different things. Another one I wanted to point out, so if you go to Contracting for Fire yellow box, contracting updates, we do have a vendor source list, which we utilize to get an idea of what other resources are out there that folks are willing to contract out for fire suppression. There's always a need for a lot of these resources. This vendor source list is a form you can use basically to let us know what you have, let us know who you are, how we can get a hold of you, and where that equipment's located. So when a need does arise, it's a good way for procurement folks to find out what's available out there to get to the fire or incident for those specific needs. So if you go to contracting updates, the very bottom of the page, you'll find the vendor source list. If you click on that, you're gonna be taken to a form where you can list out all that information. And I believe that is all I had for you this evening on a presentation. But that does leave us quite a bit of time for questions, and I know there's probably a lot out there. So I'll check the chat and see if anything pops up there. But I don't know if there's a raise your hand function or not, or if it just kind of do a free for all and see who pops up first.
At the bottom of your screen, there's a reactions button, and there's a way to raise your hand there. That might be the best way, I think.
Okay. Thanks, Deanna.
Mhm. So Lisa has a question. When can people list on the vendor resource list?
They can, yeah, at any point. People have already started utilizing the list for 2022. If you have already put your resource in there in the past, you don't need to list it again every year. It's there. But if you do have something new you want to get on that list, yep, it's available and ready to use.
Okay, quite a few coming in the chat here, so I'll just read one and then we'll go to Galaxy A10.
Okay.
Okay. Had problems last year. This is from Ginny. We had problems last year with getting release from fires on IROC so that we could status ourselves out. Or so that she could status herself is what she's saying.
Okay. So yeah, there is in the video, it does talk about if you go into IROC and it's showing you like status released from incident, it talks about, you know, the steps you would need to take to be able to set yourself as available. And I believe with that one, you need to contact the incident dispatch to let them know that they need to go in and release you from that status so you can status yourself. So there's still some communication that might need to happen with the dispatch centers, depending on what status is showing up in there. But yeah, I guess it's also, you kind of know, what your status is, so there's no question. So it is a good system to kind of see what you are listed at, so you can kind of start trying to fix the problem versus trying to call your dispatch center, who could be pretty overwhelmed at that moment and not be able to help you in a timely fashion. So.
Okay, great. All right, Galaxy, you're on.
Yes, I'm from Idaho, and I see on the NRCG that Idaho Departments of Lands is listed on that. If I am signed up with them, do I still need to sign up with Viper?
Yeah, so if you do have something set up with Idaho Department of Lands, then Idaho Department of Lands is the only agency that would be able to utilize you. Whereas if you have a resource that we're soliciting for in the Viper system, that makes that resource available to all the interagency partners to order up and utilize you for fire suppression or all hazard incidents. So Idaho Department of Lands, whatever you have with them is specific to them, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, we'll go to Charlie on the chat. Is there a specific contact or meeting for telecommunications, drones, etc.? And another part to the question here, are there any requirements for a specific IDIQ, example FieldCom, that must be used? And then lastly, any set-aside requirements, WOSB, etc.? So 3 parts to the question. Specific contact or meeting for the telecommunications.
Yeah, I'll have to reach out to our aviation group. We don't have any drone solicitations in the Viper system, and I'm not sure where they're at with soliciting for that type of a resource. But that'd be something specific to definitely our aviation branch, and they would be in the known on that. I guess my expertise falls on kind of the rolling stock of fire equipment. You start talking about things that are in the air, that's way out of my my expertise for sure. So I'll take note of the name, and hopefully I can get your contact information at some point to try to get you directed into somebody who would know more about that.
Is that good, Charlie, or do you want to ask more questions? Good to go? All right, let's go to Lee. Lee had his hand up for a minute there. Lee from Idaho. All right.
Let me unmute. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, when you mentioned that the resource in Viper, if you already have your resource in there on the existing contract, you don't need to relist it for the new bid. I don't believe that's correct, because on any resource for this year's bid on any equipment, all of those resources have pictures and other documents that have to be uploaded at the time you fill out your My Resource tablet or Viper, so that if you've got a skidgen that on a contract, you have to re-put that skidgen on as if it were a new piece of equipment to be bid this year, because you're going to have to attach photos and other documents to it to complete the solicitation process.
Yeah, that's correctly. I don't know if I misspoke or there's some miscommunication, but yeah, if you have a current resource, say whether it's water handling or heavy equipment with water, it doesn't just roll over. You do need to submit as if it was a whole new process for everybody, whether you've been in the system before or you're new to it. This round of solicitations, you do have to submit all the required paperwork and pictures to be considered for an award.
Hey Ryan, it's Chris. And just to clarify too, what Ryan initially was talking about, I think where the confusion is he was referencing the resource list that is hosted through the dispatch centers for things that are not on Viper. So the Viper, anything on Viper that's up for solicitation this year will need a renewal. But if you have something, let's say tents, for instance, or a UTV that you've already uploaded into the resource list last year, that information is still going to be listed through that resource list. So two separate things.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, let's go to Steve on the chat. What about ITSS trailers for computers, network, internet?
That one, the ITTS trailers. I believe there's a national solicitation for helicopter support trailers, but I don't think that's, seems like this is a different solicitation, and one again that I'm not familiar with. I don't know that. Yeah, we're not soliciting for anything specific in Region 1 for ITSS trailers or computer network stuff.
Steve, do you have anything more specific, or if not, just, get in touch with your PTAC. I don't know where you're at, but we can help you sort that out.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, let's go to Flat Rock Contracting next. Unmute. Can you hear us okay, Flat Rock? Looks like they muted, put back on mute. All right, while we're waiting for Flat Rock, Marianne Smith, do you have a good source for radios?
I do not have any sources for radios. I know in the solicitation, it gives reference to kind of the different specifications or where you can find what meets the specifications for those radios. But as far as where and who has them, yeah, I don't have any good information on that.
All right, let's go to Ross with Garden Forestry. What are the insurance requirements for contracting?
So we do leave the insurance requirements up to the contractor. They are required to have workers' compensation insurance and liability insurance. The insurance that we don't know that there's any specific liability thresholds that they have to have. That's something that they need to work with their insurance agent to determine they're meeting the needs for the type of insurance they would need to carry. So that's not something we lay out and say you have to have $1 million in limited liability coverage or anything like that. It's that's something that needs to be sorted out with your insurance agent on that. But yeah, workers' compensation is also another one that is required by contractors.
Thanks, Ryan. This is from Bodel to everyone. Will there be pre-contract equipment inspections?
All right, so equipment inspections. So depending on how long you've been doing fire, you're probably familiar with the pre-award inspections. Those pre-award inspections in the past were done by what we called our equipment inspector and memorandum of understanding holders. So we had 3 of those folks within Region 1 that went around and did an inspection on the equipment that you were going to be submitting for an award. So that's changed quite a bit. And how that's kind of come about is that I talked a little bit earlier about the Property and Procurement Services group organizing at that Washington office level and kind of rezoning and moving from regional contracting officers to a Washington office level acquisition group. And so there was a lot of reasons why that happened. One of them was to try to get a more consistent process across all regions. But in this reorganization, they also came to the determination that doing a pre-award inspection on these agreements was against the federal acquisition regulations. So as much as we liked that in Region 1, it put us in a position where we're told we could no longer do that. So going into this solicitation cycle, we're not having any MOU inspectors do inspections before you submit your technical requirements package through Viper. That's the pictures, documentation of weight slips and things like that all need to be submitted along with your bid. So that's no longer. We do have, if you read in the solicitation, the ability to do what we're calling a hands-on government inspection. And the way that is intended to work for Region 1, and this is something, if you're in multiple regions or even zones, it's going to be different depending on the region you're in. Region 1 is going to be doing random selection of all the resources and that have submitted for their bids in the system, and looking at those pieces of equipment. We don't have the capacity to do 100% inspection, so it didn't make sense to have MOU inspectors just do a handful of inspections on the equipment and having some folks pay and some folks not. So we decided that we'll do a random selection of our resources and look at those ones for this hands-on inspection. So I say that, and then I also say that, yeah, this is definitely not where we want to be. We're going to be really putting our focus in on the pre-use inspection, and making sure that we're getting a good look at this equipment before it goes to incident. And so what that looks like, some of you have been doing it a long time, so that's nothing new. But those who are coming in new, pre-use inspection is something that when you are ordered on the dispatch priority list, you would be given instructions to show up for an inspection before you actually go to the incident. So with that, we're trying to make sure that you're ready to go. You have your equipment's up and running the way it should be, and you have all the listed items that you should have. So you're in compliance. So it's a compliance inspection and it's a mechanical inspection all in one to make sure that what you have stated you have for a resource is in fact what you have for a resource. So that, that does put people in a little bit more precarious of a position, because, prior they were getting their equipment looked at, they know they were good to go or not before you got to that point of having a pre-use inspection. And if you fail at that point, you are ordered and you do not pass, you don't get paid. So if you're showing up, 3 hours away to this inspection site and you don't have those things, and it's not something that you can remedy fairly quickly, then you don't pass and you don't get that order to go to that incident. So that does hurt a bit more than we'd like to see, but we have to figure out a way that we're treating everybody fairly, and there's a lot of opportunity to say that you have things, and if you don't have some of the things, there's going to be disparity in how folks show up on the dispatch priority list. You need to make sure what you said is actually what you have, and trying to make sure that we're getting what we have asked for and what you stated you have to the incident with no issue. So that's where we're at right now with inspections. I know there's going to be probably a lot more questions with this. It's been a big change. It's not exactly where we want to be either, but it's where we're at right now, and that's kind of the focus that we're going to take going into this season is really that pre-use inspection to validate the equipment that we have awards on.
Okay, I think the next two questions probably you just answered, Ryan, but let's make sure. Randy, did that answer your question about inspections? Just give a thumbs up or unmute and say yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, it did.
Okay, wonderful. And then Montana Fire, I don't know if that fully answered your question. I'll just, you want to?
No. I'm just kind of curious, how are we doing the pressure tests and the pump stuff as far as the inspections go? I mean, we go to submit, we have to have our pressure tests done. How are you guys expecting to have those done?
Yeah, so that's obviously a good question. That's not something you can take a picture of and show us. So we're relying on the vendors to let us know what their pump pressure is. In the Viper system, I believe there's a section where you can list your equipment or your pump pressure as, being excellent, good, or I'm not sure what the three options are, but the system will have a place to input that information, and we have to take your word for it. So that's kind of where we're at with it. That's something we can check up on during a pre-use inspection, and if it's not accurate, then we can deal with it at that time. But it's still a advantage. It's still it's one of those that does have points associated with it, so it does affect where you sit in the DPL. But it's also something that you're gonna have to self-certify. One thing I guess I'll throw out there is, if you're new to Viper, or you just want to make sure you have everything the way it should be, there's nothing that says you can't call one of our MOU holders to do an inspection. It's not something we're requiring, but if you have concerns, they're still out there, and I would imagine would be willing to check on your equipment to let you know with accuracy what you have, and pump pressure being one of them. But I'm also going to say that is not a requirement. That's something you can do on your own if you are concerned or are new to this and just want to make sure, because it's going to be different. We can't check everything before, so it's going to be that pre-use, and so we're expecting folks to be ready to go, and if you're not in compliance, or if you're not, if you don't have the things you say you have on your equipment, and we catch that's gonna be disappointing, and it's gonna be the case where we're gonna have to fail you on that inspection and go to the next one on the list.
Deanna, there's a couple more questions I think about that. The photos or the technical proposal. I see Turk has a comment that frozen water will not flow. And I don't know that that's a direct question, but I know that some of the vendors I've been talking to, the technical proposal that's going into the is been embedded into the Viper application. So it's not a separate step this year, and it's also due on the same day that all the quotes are due. So the photos of your equipment, and maybe Chris or Ryan want to talk a little bit about this, but those photos are going to be the basis. And you need to read section E.2 of the solicitation very carefully so you understand what's going to be required for those photos, and know that the deadlines that Ryan talked about earlier, the March 10th and March 11th for the weed washers, so March 10th for the water equipment, you have to have all those photos ready and to go. So it's important to read that solicitation and understand what that requirement is.
Yeah, thanks, Patty. And I guess, yeah, just to add on to that. And this kind of goes to Mr. Turk's frozen, I guess, yeah, water doesn't flow. If you do have weight slips that you already have for that equipment, and you can submit those. So whether it was an MOU inspection or some other certified weight ticket from a commercial vendor that shows here's the equipment, you can see on the weight ticket there's the VIN. This is the equipment we're submitting for. Here's the equipment weighed with water on it. Here's the equipment without water. If you have those, then you wouldn't need to run out and fill up your tanks and go get weighed and then dump it out and get reweighed or vice versa. So if you do have some of that documentation from the past, the more recent the better. You could go that direction as well as far as the weight slips go.
Could I ask one question to add on to that?
Yes.
I just wanted to understand, would that be the same for the aftermarket certifications? If they had their like Skidgen tanks certified in the past, would they have to get a new certification this year?
No. Yeah, the same with the certifications. If they've had one done in the past and they haven't made any changes, that certification is still valid.
Thank you.
Just looking at, hopefully I didn't miss anybody, but yeah, Exhibit J is missing from the contract. And for those who don't know what Exhibit J is, it's the advantages. And it's basically the breakout of how those points are awarded. So it lets you know, like, depending on gallons, how many points you get. If you have so many gallons, it shows you how many points you get for age. And the same for, the foam proportion or pump pressure. All of that is an Exhibit J, which breaks it down further. I think the solicitation does still show that there's points awarded for those advantages, but it doesn't have the breakdown because it's missing Exhibit J. I know they're trying to get that in there. I haven't heard what that looks like as far as when that solicitation if it will get updated or how they're going to try to get that incorporated in there for this solicitation. But we are aware that it is missing and they're trying to get it fixed. So more to come on that. Hopefully by Thursday, I'll have an update on that. But yes, thank you for noticing that. And
it hasn't.
Let me see.
So Ryan, does that address the verifications for
No,
employees?
the verifications of employees are different.
Yeah,
That's what I want to know.
right.
yeah, so we're still needing
Click after your last word and then hit enter.
We still are requiring verifications for firefighters, engine bosses. We're still utilizing our MOU inspectors and verifiers to do verifications. So that is still a requirement to have firefighters verified.
The contract doesn't specifically state like for the solicitation as it has in the past. So we were confused by that.
Okay. And I'll
So
have to,
anyone, we're not new to this business, but anyone that might not even understand they have to do that. So just saying.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so looks like Firebrand Forestry, question about Exhibit J, and then another question about how will advantages be determined the pump performance. I guess you did talk about that a little bit. Did you get your question answered, Firebrand? Do you want Ryan to expand? Good. Okay. And then we've got Titus. My small business specializes in metal welding and fabrication, both in-shop custom fab and or on-site mobile welding units. Is the vendor service list the best place to advertise our services, where we can modify, repair, reinforce, replace metal, heavy machinery, that kind of thing?
The vendor source list, it doesn't seem like that would be a very good place for that. Yeah, I guess that list is really for specific equipment that the fire may need that we don't have a pre-season agreement set up for. So like a welding fabrication service wouldn't be something that that I would foresee the incident necessarily needing. But yeah, I guess here's a good forum to let people know that you're out there and you can do that work. Other than that, I guess I'm not sure where the best place would be to advertise that.
Put your info in the chat, Titus. We'll go to Ginny. She's got her hand up.
Okay, I have two questions. The first question is regarding whether we could use Exhibit M as from previous contracts as our support for the stuff that was tested, the specs on those engines, or do we need, or for the weights, or do we need to actually find the weight slips and stuff?
So you had a previous inspection done by one of our MOU inspectors that used Exhibit M. That would be fine to submit for your weight.
Okay. And the second question has to do with our bids. Are we going to be able to be competitive with these other regions this year? I know that in the past we've been sent to negotiations and not able to have competitive bids with Region 6 and whatever California's number is.
Region 5, yeah. We go through a process doing for each region goes through a process to submit an independent government estimate. So taking in the different factors like the labor shortage, inflation, increase in wages, increase in the cost of fuel, and compile that to come up with what we feel is a reasonable price. So that's gonna be different for each region. So I guess I can't say that I didn't look at what Region 6 submitted or Region 5, but I do know, like you said, historically those costs have been, for their bids have been higher. We did everything we could to try to take into account the current economic situation for this coming season. but again, yeah, if you do have a bid that's too high, it's going to be a similar process that you might have dealt with in the past, and going into negotiations to try to come to what I guess we come to as far as a reasonable price for that resource.
What we're not sure we understand on that is that we have to follow the same labor laws. Like if I send a truck to California, I still have to follow the same labor laws in California. And we lose money going down there. So I don't understand how come it's done that way rather than on a national level. We're all going to national locations and having to pay double time in California when we get, 12 hours and those kinds of things. So
yeah, and that's not easy for sure. And I guess I don't know if it comes down to strategy, because I guess if you're, if you have a high bid because you're going to be accepting orders to California to try to meet your costs, you're probably not going to be very high on the DPL within the GAC to get those assignments. It's tough. I guess I don't have a good answer for that. And it's a good question. And I don't have anything more than what I've kind of already stated as far as that goes.
And Ryan, I'll turn away in a little bit. The one thing that we have to recognize and look at even though these are zone solicitations, California is on the west zone, this is east zone. And for the fair market value and the independent government research, we have to consider the location where we work out of. So we can't always look at the worst case scenario for an agreement in Montana and North Idaho and the Dakotas, because then that would kind of defeat the purpose of a government estimate for this location. So, I guess if the interest, as a business decision, if the interest is for you to work in California, that's something that you'd have to take into consideration. But for us to build the government estimate specifically for the chance that you may go to California, we don't have the latitude to do that.
Okay, let's go to Mary Bradford. Can you have 4 people on a Type 3 engine?
No, the contract is 3.
And Jennifer wants to know about the links in the chat. I will send out the PowerPoint, and then, I don't know, Ryan, there were some other links to the contracting website and a few things. We'll make sure you get all the information.
Okay,
and
thanks.
It looks like Patty put a link there already. And then Randy wants to know, what is the March 10 close date?
Yeah, so looking at the solicitations in SAM.gov, the water handling close date is March 10th, whereas the heavy equipment with water and weed wash are March 11th. So there's a difference in that solicitations close date.
And then Jennifer wants to know, can we have a link for the status update? Was it IROC? Yes. And we can make sure you get all that. I think Patty put it in already. Flat Rock, why is the close date changed to March 10th versus May 6th? So it was May 6th in 2019, and this year it's March 10th. So they want to know why.
Yeah, and I think that's partly to do with just kind of trying to deal with not being able to do the pre-award inspection. We were hoping we could try to accommodate and get all those inspections done if an award came earlier. So that was kind of the push to try to get these solicitations out and awarded, so there was time to do that inspection process after award. So that was one of the factors in with a different date than what was done in the past.
Okay, Brian Olson, is there a deadline for backup equipment list? And is the list open for bidding?
Is the vendor source list, is that what we're?
Yeah, I think that's what it means, yeah.
Yeah, it's open. it's open now, and it'll continue to be open. There's no deadline on the vendor source list. So this is anything that's not in the Viper system or anything we have a pre-award for. This is everything else, and that link is open now, and it will remain open. There's no close on that.
All right, this is from Corey. On the pressure test, remember the Orphic 0.716 Type 3 ETC Northridge Fire Equipment will do free pump tests. Corey, do you want to comment on that?
Well, what I meant by that statement was saying that just remember when people are taking pictures of these pump tests, if you guys require pictures, that you have to use the orifice, and a lot of pumps, if they're doing free flow tests and just deadheading their pressure and taking a picture of their gauge, it's not going to be accurate, and they're going to fail come time test at site. So just remember the orifices have to be used, and everything is very specific as far as value. And I just wanted to comment on that and say that Northridge Fire Equipment, I'll test them for free. Just bring them in, and I'll be more than happy to do a pump test for you.
Thanks, Corey. And this is from Randy. I'm putting a new tender together, and he was told he had till May to get it done. Why the date change? I think Ryan addressed that already. Randy says he's purchased everything and is in the process of putting it together, but it will not be done by March 10th.
And
So, yeah.
did you talk to me, or who did you talk to specifically?
I talked to both you and Ryan.
Okay, so I vaguely recall our conversation. I think I do. So let's talk offline. I think that the thought was if you have a tender nearly complete but might be missing, some odds and ends. So this would go for everybody. If you don't have a submittal in by the deadline, there's nothing we can do for you. So I would recommend, if you have equipment get a submittal in, and then we can see if we can work with you through the technical eval or through the inspection process. But I think the fundamental rule here is if you're hesitant to get the submittal in because of something not quite done on the equipment, if you don't have a submittal in, we're dead in the water. So Randy, if you got concerns specific to your situation, just give me a call again. We can talk about it.
Thanks, Chris. Titus put his information in the chat for those that might need some fab shop, repair, welding. This is from Chad to everyone. He's new to the vendor list with ATV, UTV, looking for the insurance requirements.
So this is one that we sometimes get quizzed on. The thing I would recommend to any contractor or vendor that wants to do government or business with the government, it is ultimately your responsibility, if you choose to do business with us, to ensure that you got proper insurance and that your equipment is legal to operate. We in the Forest Service, I don't set insurance limits. I don't regulate for DOT, so I don't necessarily know all of the rules for DOT or the insurance thresholds that are required. That's why we're reaching out to you. If we, it's one of those things, if we knew it all, we would probably do it ourselves. But this is that right there is a vendor responsibility to make sure if they want to hold an agreement with the government or contract. You have to make sure that your stuff is legal to operate and that you do have insurance that meets the minimum. And again, it's not what us in the Forest Service that sets those standards. So again, it is up to the contractor to ensure that they have the liability insurances and they're legal to operate.
Thank you, Chris. All right, we've got a lot more questions to get to here, so I'm going to kind of speed us along here. This is from Montana Fire. So again, because I want to make sure if we had agreements in 2021 on engine equipment, we can use those inspection forms for pump SIS, is that how you say that? I don't really know. And engine info. I like Mr. Turk AM, worried that with cold weather, we won't be able to thaw our tanks enough to full without breakage.
Yes, so if you do have inspections, prior inspections that have that information, you're definitely will accept that for the documents that you need to be submitted for the technical evaluation portion of this award. So yeah, we will accept those documents.
Thank you, Ryan.
And Ryan Deskins has a comment. Then California comes after us for tax, money, workman's comp. So to the earlier discussion about the costs. Marianne Smith, what is the limit on the bid price for water tenders? And how do you know how much to bid?
So we don't advertise the upper threshold or ceiling, whatever you want to call it. That's that's something you need to work out and try to make sure you're taking into account all the costs that you might occur, and then also taking into account that you want to make a profit, and submit that. So we can't say what you need to put in. I think that's something you need to figure out for yourself. And if it ends up being higher than what we've determined in the independent government estimate, then that's where a contracting officer is going to reach out to you to negotiate on that price.
Okay, great. Sarah has a question about freezing water in the pumps. I think we answered this already. Yes, you can use your inspection from 2019. Is that correct, Ryan, for PSI? Or that's too far?
I guess the more recent, the better. But if that's the most recent, yeah, we would accept that.
Okay. And then Jennifer Mant wants contact information from Corey. Patty has a link to the weed wash units at sam.gov, as well as the water handling equipment at sam.gov, heavy equipment with water also at sam.gov. And then Sarah has a question that got answered. So it looks like we've made it through the list. And Lee has his hand raised. Go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, I just want to point out that you can view on the Viper website, you can view that what the previous assets were bid out and contracts awarded by region, by dispatch center. So it's all that information is available there. So if you've got a Skidgen, you can look in region 4, which is my region, at the dispatch center in, let's say, the NIFC, the National Interagency Fire Center. When you open that up, it will show you how many assets were bid and accepted and given contracts. And you can look at each one and see what they bid, their daily rate and their mileage rate at. It's all right. All that information is available.
Yeah, PTAC can help you take a look at it. It gives a baseline at least. Okay. I don't see any more questions. Did we miss anyone? I think I can see everybody on the screen here, but if I missed you, unmute and ask your question. This is the best time. Oh, there's a new one here. This is from Jenica. Rashana does a great job as a CO, but she's overworked and was on assignment last year and had difficulties getting a hold of her sometimes. Will someone else have authority to take care of contract issues during fire season? And that's from Jenica Burrows.
That's a good question. I know, in the past, the signatory CO was the one who needed to do certain actions for that solicitation. I did see that they did have listed another CO that's under the main CO for these solicitations. I'm not sure if they have the same abilities or not. If Randy Sadler's on it, if he has anything more, I guess, on that. But if not, I guess that's something I can run back to the contracting officers and see. But in the past, that's the same that I've
and I can add a little bit more to that.
Okay.
So, our busy season with Viper obviously is this time of year, and pretty much all of us, once we get those awards done by June 1st, we're all out in the field working, at fire assignments too, just like the rest of the contract operations people. So if you do look at those lists, those contact lists, every one of them will have a backup. Now, the problem is, just like Ryan was saying, is that the awarding contracting officer, unless they actually assign a administrative contracting officer within Viper, no one else has access to actually sign the awards. So, for example, I'll be Roshana's backup on water handling. So you could reach out to me directly, and then, between me and Roshana, or if we have to get a supervisor involved to work on some emergency action, we'll do the best that we can. But your primary CO is going to be the one you want to go to, and then that alternate would be your secondary choice.
Thank you, Randy.
Yep, no problem.
All right, Corey put his info in the chat for whoever wanted it there. Brian Olson has a question. Does the resource list get used very often, or at least has it in previous years? So the vendor list is what he's talking about.
The vendor source list, yeah, to my knowledge, it does. So buying teams, when they come in, they utilize it. So it's available to our to the procurement folks when they come in, and when they're looking for stuff. That is one of the places they go to find it. So
thank you. And then Jenny, should we expect limited camps again this year?
I guess, yeah, that's a crystal ball question. I guess I'm not too keen on looking into my crystal ball, but what I guess the saying is this year will probably be a lot like last year for most things. I guess that I wouldn't expect a lot of changes, but it's probably going to be somewhat similar to last year.
Thank you. And then Jenica, I think this got answered by Randall, but please give ACOs administrative authority in Viper. Right? And then Bo.
I will run that up the chain to see if we shouldn't do that, because I thought maybe there was a couple of times last year that would have been helpful. Okay. So yeah, I'll mention it in our work group, see if we can't do that. Otherwise, your assistant, all they can do is create a mod or something, but they can't actually sign it. So yeah, that might be something we can do, but I'll definitely run it up the chain in the east zone of the branch there.
Thank you. And then this is Bose to everyone. Last summer, dispatch emailed me for a flyer assignment instead of a phone call. This isn't what it's come to, is it? So he doesn't like the emails, he wants a phone call.
Yeah, that's new. I haven't heard of dispatch doing emails for resources. No, I would expect you to get a phone call as well.
Okay, and Ross with Guardian Forestry, what are the requirements for fallers?
I know they have to have a resume and showing their experience as fallers. I believe the solicitation for fallers is might be next year. We'll be soliciting for that.
Yeah. And it's so yeah, typically we look for 3 years of timber falling experience. And then if you have some timber falling experience, and let's say you were a qualified C-Sawyer or Faller 1 with the federal agency or government agency, we could consider part of that to augment the timber falling experience. But again, it's a resume. We're looking for a minimum of 3 years falling experience. Specifically in like timber cutting for logging operations.
And Patty says there will be a rollover mod for fallers this year.
So to touch on that, if the question is specific, like if you got new fallers that you want to get onto the agreement, same process as the initial solicitation cycle, submit the faller information to us and we'll review it and then let you know if it's approved.
Thank you, Chris. I don't see any more questions in the chat. Oh, here's another one. Hang on. This is from Ron. Which dispatch centers are going to take Bozeman's geographical areas?
Yeah, so that's really up to, I guess, the vendors on who they decide to select as their dispatch center. We're not making any requirements as far as where resources have to go. That's up to the vendors. So yeah, I guess you kind of take your pick to decide on that. So there isn't a specific one that's taking all of Bozeman Dispatch Center. It's going to be kind of absorbed within the rest of the dispatch centers around Bozeman.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, Mary Ann Smith, what date do the solicitations come out? I missed it. They're out.
February 11th, I believe they have come out. So they're all out currently. And yeah, they closed on the 10th for the water handling and the 11th for the weed wash and heavy equipment with water. So they're
Mary
in.
Ann, go ahead. Mary Ann, the links to all the solicitations are in the chat. Patty put the links in there on sam.gov. Or you can just go to sam.gov, type in Viper, VIPR, and they're going to pop up. Ron says, thanks everyone. Good information, good questions and answers. Big changes. Mary Ann says, thanks. All right, another question here. Smoke Hound. What has or is being done to assure that resources are dispatched according to the order published on the dispatch award list? This was an issue in our dispatch center last year.
Yes, I mean that's their protocol is to utilize the dispatch priority list. You know, last year was a very big year, so you know dispatchers did get overwhelmed. I know they're doing after action reviews and looking at how we can better support our dispatch centers and make sure that they have the capacity they need. But that's what their protocol is. That's what they're supposed to be doing. I think probably a lot of people saw that things weren't exactly running smoothly at a lot of dispatch centers, but that's just, I think, the effect of having such a catastrophic fire season this last year.
Okay, Sarah says, thank you to everyone for your time and information. Are there any other questions? It looks like Montana Fires says, thank you also for answering questions and taking time for the meeting. This is your opportunity to ask those questions, so don't be shy. Unmute, raise your hand. We will make sure that everyone gets a copy of the slides, and we'll make sure everybody gets all the links that we've kind of referenced tonight. Most of them have been put in the chat, but if you missed it, we will send out via email to everyone that signed on tonight. Galaxy S9 says, thank you from Flame Chaser.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time tonight, everybody, Chris and Ryan and Randall and everyone else that signed on with the Forest Service team and all the PTACs out there. Don't forget, we are here to support your company in its government contracting efforts, and don't be shy. Call us and we will help you through whatever question. There's no silly question. We are very proficient in all these systems, and we keep up to speed on the solicitations and all the changes and all the requirements. So, you know, don't suffer through it. Give us a ring. Lee, anything you want to add?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Very nice presentation. I did want to give a kudo to the Viper people this year that put the system out, and especially on the My Resources. As you go through on a piece of equipment that you're going to list, like it's Kitchen, they have a very excellent list of documents that need to be uploaded in support of that. So if you pay attention to the documents at the end of the piece of equipment as you're uploading it, and upload everything they ask for, you will have no problem with the asset qualifying when you bid it to a solicitation.
So Ken, Charlie, Chuck all said thank you. Corey wants to know COVID vax mandate on the Viper.
Yeah, there's no mandate for COVID vaccinations with the Viper agreements.
And Steve wants to know if the Thursday meeting will be identical.
I'll have a similar presentation. Yeah, I would imagine there might be a few different questions, but probably a lot of the same ones.
Patty will be leading that charge. All right, anything else for the good of the meeting? Okay, good. Well, thank you all for signing on, and
How do we shut this off, honey?
oh, I think that was not meant for us. Hang on. Okay, I think we're good. All right. Well, if that's it, then thank you for signing on and have a good evening. And we'll talk soon when you call PTAC.
Thanks, Deanna.
Oh, you're welcome. Brian, we'll get a list of all that attended, if that would be helpful to you once we kind of reconcile and get it straightened out, probably in the next couple days.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay. Perfect.
How many total did you see on tonight?
We had 141 registered. Now, I don't think they all signed on. I don't know. I can't tell from just looking at the screen how many. So we'll have that count though in the next day or two.
Okay.
70. Unless there's a spot where it shows the count. I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, I think that they just had kind of the participants that kind of shows a number next to it, but it's not, it looked like it was over 100.
Oh yeah, I didn't even look. Yeah. Well, we can't tell now because they're all signing off. So
Yeah.
well,
Hey, Ryan or Deanna, could you share that attendee list with me as well?
oh, I will for sure, Randall. Thank you.
All right, great. All right, thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Hey,
It's kind of hateful here until everybody's out. Randy said there was 130 at one time, so he noticed the count. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I'll just end the meeting. Anything else?
No, I think that's it. Thanks again. We'll see you Thursday.
Sounds good. Bye.
Okay.